wanted to hear what we had to say. So um, there we go. Right. Thank you for that. So it's good to hear that you do read some newsletters. I know we all feel a bit like we're bombarded by newsletters, but let me talk about why they're good. I'm just going to put my slides up. Um, there we go. Can everyone see that? I'll take silence as good. uh, Here's a little bit about how we're going to get through the next hour and a bit. We've done welcomes and introductions. I'm going to talk at you for a bit about my feelings about email marketing and some why, go through a little bit about the why and the how. Then Zoe from Sustainable Wantage has done us a short film about how she compiles their newsletter, which we're going to watch. Then Max from Sustainable Didcot is going to take us through a bit about their newsletters and how they do it and their engagement. And then I'm going to we're going to look a little bit about the sort of tools that are out there, the MailChimps and other sort of software and platforms that we can use to make writing emails easier. And a bit of time at the end for questions. So let's get started. Oh, my screen has taken my time off, so I need to just keep an eye on the time. But here we go. So, are we over email? I've said no. Email marketing, I think it's as important as ever. I think that, well, here's a few stats. More than 3.7 billion email users have there's more than 3 billion email users, and that's 3 times as many as there are accounts on Facebook and Twitter, or X as it is. So if you think about that, everyone has at least one email address. I have about 4 email addresses. I have 2 jobs. I have my personal, and I have another Gmail one for some reason. And I check them every day, all of them. So it's just there's constant points throughout the day when people are checking their emails, whether they are desk-based at a job or not. They're on your phone, they're on your computer, they're everywhere. And if your email is the one, like the ones we've just talked about, that people enjoy or people look forward to getting, then you've done your battle, you're there, you're in people's minds, and there's sort of, you've built that trust with them. So I do think it's a really important part of engagement and marketing and communication with people that you want to take part in your activities and get involved in your group. 99% of email users check their inbox every day. So of those 3.7 billion email users, every single one of them is checking their email every day. So unlike a Facebook, with Facebook or with any sort of social media, people are checking it all the time. It is constantly refreshing, but we also know that the stuff that we see is quite sort of tailored and tweaked by the algorithms that the social media have. So if you post something on a Tuesday, even your followers might not see that post for 2 days, depending on what else is being sort of thrown at them through the dreaded algorithms. So while I think that social media is really important, I think that you shouldn't overlook the power of a good email. Pros and cons. I'm sure some of you will have some more of these. These are the main ones I could think of. So it's owned by you, like I said before, like on Facebook and everything, you have your followers, you have your kind of likes and this, but not everyone gets to see all your content all the time unless they specifically go to your page to look for stuff. Whereas your mailing list is people that have opted to hear from you, and you get to email them as and when you want, or as and when you've agreed with, sort of agreed that you will. that goes straight into their inbox, which they're in control of. So it's much more of a controlled sort of transaction that you get to be in charge of. I talked about the algorithms. It's cost effective. Um, Nearly, there's a lot of, we'll go into this later, but there's a lot of free options to send emails through, like MailChimp and your website and things like that. Or, if you hit that point where you've got more subscribers, it's still quite cost effective. There was the stat that said for every £1 we spend on email marketing, you can expect a return on investment of £38, which is by far the most effective, the most sort of biggest return on investment. Not that we really deal with that in our sort of non-sector world, but it's interesting to know that it's still better than advertising and social media adverts and things like that. It builds trust and relationships. So, like we talked about at the beginning, the emails that you love to open and you love to read have a tone and a voice that sort of speaks to you, that you sort of resonate with. You enjoy reading it, and in return, you click on the links and you find information. So you do sort of, even though it's obviously not the same as an in-person event, you are a person talking to other people, and you can use those, like use your own voice and use your personality and sort of speak to people directly. So that's good, and provides content for your website and social media channels. So although it can feel really onerous to put together a newsletter, in sort of researching and building that content, you're also creating content that can be sort of recycled again and again. So you can write a blog on your website that you then share in your newsletter, then share on social media, and then it sort of comes back to that, and then you can share it. Maybe someone else will share it. So it's not wasted time. That content can be sort of reused, recycled, and spread further. The cons, obviously, the time it takes time to research, it takes time to decide what you want to say, it takes time to actually write it, lay it out, check it, sort out your mailing list, do marketing to get people to sign up to your mailing list. But every sort of marketing endeavor does take time. So I would say build it in and use the tools and your tools that are available to make it as easy as possible. Again, time, building your following. It can be really disheartening if you're writing an email and it takes you like 4 hours to do it, and you send it out and like 4 people read it, and you're just like, oh, was that worth it? But you have to keep going. You will build up readers, you will build up readership, and it's like a bit chicken and egg. Obviously, you need to have a decent content and something that someone wants to read in order for them to open it, and you need to actually send them. So you can't think, oh, I'm going to wait until I've got 100 subscribers before I send anything out, because you need to sort of build on it to get it going. Time bound. This is one that really annoys me, is that you've just spent ages writing your newsletter, you send it out, and then someone sends you something brilliant that's happening like the next day, and it's missed the boat. So that can be really frustrating, especially if you're only sending things out once a month. You don't want to send another email just for one thing. I mean, that's where like Facebook and social media can help you out. You can say, oh, I can add this. And reaching your engaged audience, not new ones. So obviously you're only ever going to reach the people that are subscribed to you and that already know that you're there. So in order to reach, you need to use your events and your social media and other sort of marketing channels to reach new audiences. Your email list is only ever going to be people that already know about you and that have subscribed. Does anyone else have any pros or cons that they want to add into that mix? No? Cool. Well, I'm sure you'll think of some, but let's see what we got next. Growing your audience. Um, this is the hardest and the most time, I wouldn't say time consuming, because I think writing your content is more time consuming, but it's the most frustrating part of, I think, building a great email audience, is it does just take time. So at CAG, we have been sending out newsletters for, well, I think, for about 20 years. Um, we've got some really loyal subscribers that open all the time, and we tend to have a steady stream of people that, you know, find us via Google or whatever. So we get, about five to 10 sort of new subscribers every few weeks, without doing anything. And then if we have an event or we go somewhere and we have like a QR code or something like that, then we might get like a flurry of new subscribers. We know if the council has shared something because we'll suddenly get 20 subscribers or something, which is great. But we tend to just let it tick over. A few ways that we get subscribers. We have sign up forms on our website. I don't have like a pop-up. I'm not a big fan of pop-ups. I find it quite sort of invasive when you go on a website and the subscribe thing pops up, but that is an option, and it's, there's no avoiding it. But we have it at the top of our website, on the home page. We have it on our contact page. We have like a newsletters tab as well. And we tend to get there's quite a mix about, it's quite similar, the amount of people that sign up on those three different pages. So you can see that it's definitely worth having it in more than one place, or at least a kind of anchor link that takes you back to it. Physical sign up sheets at events, that works really well. If we're going to something, you can even have a sort of catch-all saying like, let us know if you don't want us to sign, if we'll sign you up unless you say that you specifically don't want us to sign up, or we have a sheet where people put their email addresses. Posters with QRs and codes in local shops and cafes. So obviously if you're a very locally based organisation, then get your community on board and get them to sign up. Adding the links to your email signatures, using your social media. So on your Facebook, you can have a featured at the top, you can have your sign up link there. And via WhatsApp, if you have a WhatsApp group for your organization, then you can also have a featured at the top of there, which can have your sign up link, and can sort of just keep reminding people to do it. That's if you're using something like MailChimp, then you get a URL, which is your sign up link. If you're not, then you could use a Google form or physically collect email addresses. It's up to you, whatever way you get them. Just make sure that people are clear, that you're clear about what people are signing up to, and that they're giving you their consent. And again, that's why the MailChimps of the world are really useful, because they sort of manage all that on your behalf. Have I written anything else about that? Collaboration I've written. So a great way of growing your audience is to work with other organizations and groups, especially locally. If someone already has a kind of events in your area newsletter, you don't really want to start another one doing the exact same thing. So check what other people are doing, and maybe even start off by asking if you can be like a guest, have like a guest section of their newsletter. So you can do like a paragraph about what you're doing, and that's one less email in the world. And then maybe that then spins off into you writing your own newsletter, or vice versa. You could go round to your local organisation and say, we haven't got a newsletter, I'm willing to write it, why don't you send me your news? And it can be more of a community thing. So you're opening it up so it's bigger than just you, which will give it more sort of appeal. Check with timing. How often? I would say try and stay consistent. If you've decided that you're going to send an email, then sort of pick your frequency and stick to it. Even if you're having a slow news week, there's always something you can find to bulk it out. You could just do a gallery of pictures or something, but be consistent, because that's what builds trusts and gets people coming back to you. If people know that your newsletter arrives on the first day of the month and it's going to contain this, this, and this, then they'll take comfort when it actually arrives. If I ever miss the key, we get a flurry of emails saying the key didn't arrive this week. So I try not to do it, only when I'm on holiday or something. And yeah, pick your frequency. So a weekly email is great if you run like a weekly market or a weekly event. The Poetry Library run weekly events, and I get theirs every Friday. The one I mentioned, like weekly is great, but you have to be very, very concise if you're doing a weekly one. People don't want to go through and spend 10, 15 minutes reading a weekly email. It's about what is happening that week. Be very clear about that. If you're doing a monthly one, it can be a longer form read. People know they're only going to do it once a month, like you mentioned about the Wild Oxfordshire one. You know, you're in for a long read, get a cup of tea, do it. So kind of pick your frequency and stick to it. And then, if you do need to, if you have like an emergency broadcast or something like that, you can do that. But I would say make sure you don't do that very often. Make it a very sort of exception to the rule. Same with like, don't send too many random things, just a Christmas card once a year or something like that. Otherwise, stick to your frequency. Otherwise, people will feel like they're being bombarded, or you're sort of broken your trust with them if you start sort of emailing every day or something like that. Content. Um, a brush over. I'm going to probably talk a bit more about this on the other side as well, and I know Max is going to talk about this as well. So, I mean, it's the most important part, and I talked about it earlier about finding your sort of voice and your tone. Are you very informative and formal, or are you a friend? Are you chatty and friendly? Are you going to have like a sort of welcome, a kind of paragraph about yourself and the things that have affected you? Is it personal like that, or is it going to be very sort of anonymous? Pick your sort of tone and stick to it. Don't chop and change too much. I try and go for like a mixture of both. So I try and like put a few bits of me in it, but then try and stick to the facts as well. Um, and I've sort of let it evolve a little bit over the years, the more I've got comfortable writing it. Speak to your reader, so sort of bring people in, include them, say like we're all in this together kind of thing. I know you're here because you feel passionate about this. I do too. That's why I think you should come to this or do that. So sort of rather than talking at someone, it's nice to sort of make it a kind of joint thing, a conversation, a two-way thing. Make yourself indispensable. So it's like we talked about the newsletters that we like. It gives us things, we open it because we think we can be fairly sure that it's going to give us something that we want to know, like information about an event or information about a way to get involved with something or something that you're interested in. So try and always make it useful and make it interesting. Um, Keep your layout and templates consistent so people can it's recognizable. Try and stick to the same sort of colors as you have in your brand and things like that. Bring in other people, like I said, make it bigger than you. So like, include a bit of context about if you're writing a sort of environmental newsletter, which a lot of us are, without bringing too much doom and gloom, try and find stories, like global stories that can sort of put the context of what you're doing locally. It's the kind of think global, act local. It's like this is happening and this is what we can do about it here in our patch. So it kind of brings in that context and sort of shows that you're sort of clued into what sort of the bigger picture is, and bring other perspectives in. So it's not always just you writing, like share other people's blogs, get other people to write a bit, use case studies, use anything that sort of shows that it's more than just you. Um, Sort of touched on that content and layout again, like make it really clean. We discussed at the beginning about newsletters that are a bit sort of overwhelming to look at, so make it sort of really easy to follow. Make sure you're checking that it works on a mobile as well as a desktop. And again, like the MailChimps of the world will sort of automatically do that for you. But obviously, a lot of people will read your newsletter on their phone rather than on their computer. So just making sure that reads really nicely. And obviously breaking things up with titles and pictures and buttons and things like that. So it's not just a constant stream of text. Um, and we said obviously don't put a whole article in, like put the paragraph and then read more. And the same with events, but do make sure that the information in your email is the information you want people to read, because click-throughs can be quite difficult to get. When you look at like the analytics at the back of your email, you might get 50%, like, I don't know, 400 opens and 10% click-throughs. So just make sure that if, when you're reading it, if someone doesn't click through to something, they've still got all the information they need. So if it's an event, make sure they've got the date, the time, where it is, and then a link to find out more information, which they might come back to later. They might not. They might just go to the event with that information that you sent. And the same with an article, make it enough of a story in itself, even if it's just 1 or 2 paragraphs, to give people the kind of sense of that article in case they don't bother clicking through. And then monitoring and tracking. I know that Max is going to talk about this as well. So, but don't keep writing it if people aren't opening it, if they're not clicking on anything. Try and sort of get a sense of what's, like, use the analytics in the back end of your campaign builder to kind of inform where things go even. So if something suddenly started doing really well that was at the bottom of the email, maybe bring it further up the email. And don't just rely on the email performance, like the tracking on your email client either. Get sort of feedback in person. We always do an annual survey and try and get a bit of feedback about our email marketing and other things like that. And if we're at events, we try and find out how people found out about things, whether it was through the newsletter, for example, things like that. So you can sort of see beyond the sort of the data what's going on. And make sure that email isn't the only thing that you're doing. Emails are the gateway to people coming to meet with you and to volunteer with you and to get involved. Make sure that that the email is there as a kind of prompter to do something else. But remember that people will take a while. They might read a lot of emails before they actually convert that into action. So don't be surprised if someone subscribes to your emails for about a year before they even turn up at something, because you're using that time to build trust with them. But when they do, make it really easy. So, like, if you're advertising a volunteering position, don't just say we want volunteers. Say we want volunteers for very specific jobs. It will take this much of your time. It will be in this location, or it will be home based. Try and give people a real sense of what they might be signing up for. So it's sort of, that sort of builds trust. You're giving them, a lot more information and a real easy way, like, if this is what you'd like to do, this is how you can do it. And whether it's an email address or a sign up form or something like that, people want the easiest way possible with the most information possible before they sort of get involved in something. Right, I think that is enough of me talking. Does anyone have any questions before we move on? No? Okay, I'm going to play this video and I really hope it works and you can hear it. This is Zoe from Sustainable Wantage. She couldn't come. She has a chronic illness, and so she couldn't come on the call, but she really kindly made this video for us about how she compiles the Sustainable Wantage newsletter. And I must admit, I found it really inspiring. So here we go. Here's Zoe.
Hi, I'm Zoe, and I'm going to tell you about my role compiling the monthly email newsletter for Sustainable Wantage. I volunteer for about 10 hours a month, although it's definitely possible to put together a newsletter in less time than that. As a chronically ill person, it's great. It's a great way for me to be involved with the community, even though I can't get out and go to events. I've been concerned about environmental issues for several decades, and it definitely helps me to be part of a group that's doing things that I want to see happening in the world. I use MailChimp as a platform for designing and sending out the emails. There are a couple of little glitchy things that happen. Some of these can be fixed by trying a different browser, but mostly it works well. On MailChimp, you can view a report about each newsletter. So here is the report from our November newsletter. You can see how many people it was sent to, how many people opened it, and here you can see that there were 163 clicks on links from the newsletter. If we look further down, we can see more information about this. So that's quite useful for assessing what people are interested in. There were 30 clicks on this survey about the mix. That's the community space that we run. 28 clicks on a job ad and 13 clicks on our library of things. This link is one of our events, but it's not obvious at first glance which event it was. So if we click on it, it shows us that it was the Repair Cafe. Here's the November newsletter, and this is what it looks like when it's being built. You can see these elements on the right, which we can drag and drop into the newsletter. This was an image group like this, so if we wanted to do something like that, you drag that over there and upload images. But I think to show you the newsletter itself, it's probably better to use this version, which is what people see when they click view it in your browser. When I first started doing the newsletter in 2015, I used to include general environmental news and concepts. But as Sustainable Wantage has grown, there's now plenty of content just covering local sustainability activities. The newsletter covers our own activities, which I generally give a green background. Sorry about all the scrolling. And we also cover other local green news and sustainability events run by other organisations. So here you can see one that will be run by the Town Council. I do still try and mention some of the most important reports that come out. So this month there's a new emissions gap report from the UN. I think it's good to give some context about why sustainability matters. I have a little section at the end here with a trigger warning. We all have our limits emotionally, and these reports can be so difficult to cope with. I want people to open the newsletter and see all the positive things going on without overwhelming them with all the heavy stuff. I think the most important thing is to make it accessible for people to join in themselves, especially given that getting involved with climate action is a good way to relieve eco-anxiety. Each month I post a link and bullet points from the newsletter in the local Facebook groups and on Nextdoor. We generally gain a few subscribers each month this way, and also through our events. Here's a graph with our number of subscribers from the last 10 years. Two things that have affected subscriber numbers the most are that quite a few people dropped off when the GDPR regulations came in. Then we did a lot of activities in lockdown, especially distributing food, and we gained readers through that. We send the newsletter to anybody who asks for it. They don't have to become a member of Sustainable Wantage, although we do like it if they're a member too. And that's the end of my little video. Thank you for listening.
That was Zoe. So thanks to her for. Could everyone hear that?
Yeah, very nice. Very nice of her to do this volunteering.
Well, I just thought it's so inspiring because
Yeah.
she found a way to get involved with Sustainable Wantage without having to physically be there, and it's a really it's another really nice way to package up a volunteering opportunity. Basically, is to give someone ownership of something, like that. That's
Very great.
yeah. And now I'm going to pass over to Max. Are you all right sharing your slides, or do you want me to do it? Oh,
Oh, sorry, I will give it a go. Sorry, I forgot I was on mute there.
I've got them lined up if you have any problems. So
Okay. Yeah, oh, when I minimize the screen to be able to get them up, it doesn't let me. Oh, where we go? No. Yeah, if you don't mind, it probably will be easier if you.
I'll share them,
Thank
and
you.
That one. We're like the blind leading the blind here, aren't
Oh
we?
wait, hold on. I think I've found done there. There we go.
Oh,
The little link disappeared and I couldn't find it. There we are.
brilliant.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. There. Okay. So a little introduction about Sustainable Didcot for anyone who doesn't know who we are already. It's a community-led group in Didcot, similar to Sustainable Wantage and many other local groups, that's focused on action for the planet, the climate, and sustainability. It was set up by volunteers, completely volunteer-led until halfway through this year, when they got a little bit of funding to get me in as a paid person for 8 hours a week. It's not a great deal of time, but you can do a lot in that time, depending on how you spread it. The group itself does all kinds of events, repair cafes, and various workshops called Skills and Chill, where we teach different skills like fermenting, knitting, anything completely wild and wacky things that link to sustainability. We had one on birds, one on beekeeping, things like that just get people thinking about nature, thinking about the environment as well, and teaching a skill like identification. We do swish clothes swaps fairly regularly too. So people bring clothes. It's a sort of ticketed type event, but you just pay sort of £1 or something to get in. I can't remember the exact amount. And bring a set of clothes, and you get tickets to swap certain number of items for each other. And yeah, so we run all kinds of events, sometimes kids' activities in the library, and always trying to expand what we do and get more people involved. Obviously, including with getting more paid staff involved to keep that going. We've recently got the Library of Things going, which is pretty full now. We've got several cupboards full of things. So we're really looking forward to giving that a big kickoff in the new year. So with our newsletter, it's sent out monthly. I've been writing it since I've been a post. It was previously written by the volunteers. So I took their template on MailChimp, which, as we've heard from a couple of people already, is simple, it's GDPR compliant. You don't have to pay up to a certain extent. And I don't feel like we'll be at a point anytime soon where we'd go above the numbers for the free package. The templates are really, really helpful. Once you get the hang of adjusting them, you can drag and drop boxes of pictures or text blocks that you can then fill in. And it just makes it so much quicker and easier to make it look nice. You can change the color of the background of sections to make it really clear that here's one section and the next one is in a different color. So it breaks it up really evenly, making it easier to read and focus on, and sort of lead you down the newsletter rather than just lots and lots of text. So as I said, I'm here 8 hours a week. It's not a great deal of time, and newsletters can take quite a lot of time to write. So I save time by adding things up through the month, just keeping notes of little events I've seen, or adding bits here and there to the newsletter when I see them come up or when I'm told about them. And from there, we sort of take ideas from other people as well as from what we're doing. try and take pictures of all of our events so that we can share them both in this and on social media. In the end, it doesn't take a great deal of time. It's sort of 5 minutes here and there adds up to maybe an hour, hour and a half over the month. So content, the main thing people go to our newsletter for is the events that we're running. We always include a list of that at the start. At the bottom, we have our location because, as anyone who's tried to get to the Green Hub might know, we can't get it on Google Maps. It just won't let us do it without all sorts of loopholes. So we always have that location at the bottom, a clear description of where we are. So that's something that always stays the same, the top and the bottom of the newsletter. In between that, we make small changes. So things like other local events that are going on, sometimes news, video to watch, an update on new projects that are coming about. It could be a mixture of any of those sorts of things. The main thing we try and focus on is to keep it minimal because we don't want to overload readers. Once we've given the list of events, that's the main thing that we are trying to convey, is say, look, this is what we're doing, come to our events, we'd love to see you. So it's trying to back that up with things like, oh, here's one we did during the last month, and pictures of all the people who were there enjoying it, and you should come along to the next one. And similarly, the local events we use are things like from other CAG members often, where we can say, oh, look, this is something similar, but in a different area, or something that we can't provide and someone else is doing it. And try and sort of give a boost to other local groups too. So it's about picking a few stories each month. Sometimes I'll end up taking one out because I've ended up with too many. And just making it as minimal as possible and as clear and sort of joined up as I can. So as I said, we often use events from other groups. That's something that's fairly unanimous among the newsletters we've heard about today. So not just putting our own events in there, but other people's is a really important part of how we send our information out. And we do the same on social media too. We want it to be an exchange with readers, not just a sort of newsletter of here's some information you'd like. For some newsletters, that's great. For us, we are about that sort of call to action. Come and join us, come and take part in this activity, or sign our petition, or that kind of thing. So calling to action rather than just conveying information. So things like volunteering is a really big one. Comes up quite frequently. We've got an image that we've been using on and off every newsletter, 2 or 3 newsletters, that is a call to action to volunteer. Because we want to keep repeating that message, but to make it a bit less sort of samey each time, do things like add in a little section of text about it and say what's new, what do we need volunteers with at the moment. For example, we've just launched our Allotments for All project, which is twice monthly. We go down to the allotment or have an indoor session if the weather's bad and teach specific skills. So obviously anyone who's got an allotment will know that it doesn't just need twice monthly upkeep. You need someone to be there fairly regularly. Even in winter, things like weeding and keeping everything tidy. So we're at the moment asking for volunteers to come down and sort of help out with that. It's a different opportunity to usual because it's one people can do sort of on their own, as opposed to in big groups. So it provides a different type of volunteering to most of our opportunities, which are focused around being here, being present with a group, helping to run an event or the Library of Things. So yeah, mixing it up in that sort of sense too in what we're offering. Each newsletter we focus on feedback. We tend to get quite a bit of email feedback, which is really nice. It's really positive to have. So people will be asking specifics about events or if there's a place left on events. It's a really nice way to see that people have read and looked into what we're doing. So audience, again, it's really important to know who we're talking to. Sustainable Didcot is a fairly wide-ranging demographic. We're trying to expand that more and more as well. So part of keeping it concise is that, so that we can just grab anyone's attention and try and hook them into some of our events to get them keen and interested in what we're doing, because we really want to share that. So when we think about what we've talked a little bit about this, but when we tend to read newsletters, things we've shared today is keeping it relevant to the audience. So we know that our readers want to come to events like ours because they turn up and because they email us about them and they engage on social media about them. Making it useful as well. So having information brought into one place that otherwise they'd have to search for. Things like our events, details of where we are, as I've mentioned, that we always put at the bottom. So that if someone sees an event at the top, by the time they've got to the bottom, they don't need to ask, oh, where's that going to be? Where exactly is that? Can't find it on Google Maps because the details are there. Keeping it short as well, we've spoken about, and personalizing it so that it is it's very local. Our newsletter focuses on mostly Didcot, sometimes wider Oxfordshire, very rarely anything further afield, unless it's big environmental news or one of our partners. And keeping it engaging with the tone. Our newsletter is a little bit colloquial, a little bit friendly. It is community driven and it's community oriented. So we want to keep that gentle, friendly, informal tone. That also sort of contributes to accessibility. We have a really wide range of things like age, disability, ability to use the internet, and things like that among some of our members. And by keeping it short, by keeping it clear, it can really help with that sort of thing. Consistency is one we've talked about. No, I've gone forward too far. Consistency is one we talked about as well, and that is something that we're not so good at. We send an email once a month, but it's not always on the same day. Sometimes it's a couple of weeks apart, which generally is not great, but actually seems to have benefited us. And I think the reason for that is having a monthly newsletter every month on the dot can be really nice for people who like that level of consistency. But by mixing it up a little bit once in a while, you might find that it's suddenly, because you've had two emails further apart and then closer together, people are suddenly jolted to remember, oh yeah, Sustainable Didcot, oh look at all these events that were going on. I remember they said that last month. And now a week or two later, we've seen this other set of events that I can still go to because it's coming up. It hasn't finished already. So when that's happened, we have tended to get a few more emails. It's not a recommendation to send emails all over the place, just an interesting insight from our personal experience. Resources. So when you're thinking about writing a newsletter, who is going to write it? How long do they have to spend on it? Is pretty important. So if I were to spend much more time, it would really, really restrict what we can do with the paid post that I'm in. And that being the only paid post, it would have quite an impact. So it's about keeping it short, concise, and keeping the work that it involves minimal. So using the resources we have, using the newsletters that are coming in that are providing us with this brilliant information that we can share. Personalizing it, keeping it sort of direct, and being able to say to members individually if we need to sometimes, can you help out with this? Did you see this in the newsletter? Could you potentially do one like this next time, an event? And that's helped too, keeping a track of sort of what we need and who's available, making it personal. We track who's looked at the emails, like we saw in Zoe's video, looking at the number of attendees events, which does tend to track as per the reactions that people have had or the engagement with them. And as well as email replies, as I mentioned, we tend to always get a few. It's a really nice bit of feedback usually. And how many people have donated to certain things or asked to donate. So we've had a swish coming up at the end of this month, the clothes swap, and we've got a raffle. Information about that went out in the newsletter, but also on social media. And we've had people emailing in asking how they can take part in the raffle without being able to make it to the event. So it shows that people are reading, wanting to engage, can't necessarily make the event, but still want to take part. Reusing what works, recycling content. As I said, one of our images for volunteering, we use the same one, but sometimes mix it up with a little bit of a paragraph about what's going on at the moment. Other times we'll drop it in towards the end as a little extra, just a reminder. There's a thing called priming, which is used in marketing, and it's more sort of, it's less community focused marketing. It's more sort of very, very harsh targeted. And what that is the more someone sees something and becomes familiar with it, the more likely they are to respond positively to it or believe it to be true, etc. We don't go that far into it. It's quite a science almost. But repeating things, keeping things consistent and the same in things like the volunteering and the events, which is what we really want people to focus on, can make a big difference. So by dropping that image in on its own, and then next month saying, oh, we could really, really use some volunteers for these specific things. The idea is that because they've already seen the image, they're seeing the same thing again. It's more comfortable, it's more easy to absorb because it's already been seen. People are more likely to respond positively to it. It's an interesting phenomenon to look into. And again, it's not specifically a recommendation to go about can't think of the word, like harsh levels of targeting your marketing. But it's an interesting way of thinking about it, that by repeating things, it can encourage people over time. In the same way that Alice said earlier about people might read your newsletter for a year and then turn up to an event after all that time, because it's building that trust, it's building that consistency. Occasionally we'll ask if people want to continue reading the emails. So just a little bit like, if you want to unsubscribe, you're most welcome to, kind of thing. Just once in a while, partly for GDPR reasons. We don't want to have loads of people on the mailing list who aren't going to engage or who don't want to. But generally we have, there we go, our readership sticks above 50%, which is really, really good for our personal audience. We've got about 400 people. It steadily increases each month. About 400 people who get our newsletters, and at least half of those, usually more than half of those, are reading it. They're opening it and usually taking some time in it as well, which is fantastic. We've been going for a number of years, around a decade, and people have been signing up since the first newsletter. A lot of those will be people who've sort of dropped off, because that happens over time. People will just sort of not be engaged anymore, or moved area, something like that, forget to unsubscribe, change email, that kind of thing. So for us, our readership is really, really positive sign that so many local people are directly interested in what we do. It's fairly effective because, as I mentioned, we do get emails, we get people on social media posting about it or sending us direct messages on Facebook saying, oh, this event, saw this happening, can I get involved more or can I volunteer? But that said, we do want to keep expanding what we're doing, both in terms of numbers and demographic. We've got a fair amount of things on the go where we're trying to do that, in terms of expanding the type of events that we've got and the timings as well. So with obviously being volunteer led, a lot of our activities are during work hours, which can exclude quite a wide demographic. So it's about expanding that, trying to move outside of it more to evenings and weekends, little ways like that to suit the audience with things that link in there. We've also been expanding through partnership. So again, this can help in newsletter marketing because we are sending out information from other groups or with other groups, and that's bringing in those other groups as members and saying, look, we're here too. Why not sign up to our newsletter, become a member? This is something we're always keen to do as well. So if any of you fancy doing events collaboratively, we'd always love to do that. Even just in terms of sharing events and newsletters, if anyone's ever got any that they particularly would like shared by Sustainable Didcot, we are more than happy to do that. We link everything, obviously, with all our social media. We recently got LinkedIn, and that combined with the newsletter, a targeted newsletter, specifically, not a monthly one, but specifically about the event, meant that the event was really, really well received, and so many people came. It ended up being a really busy event, which was far better than sort of anticipated. So linking up your newsletter and everything else, even things like LinkedIn, which we didn't use before, can make a huge impact. We've also got a lot of community boards. I think Alice mentioned them as well. We've got community notice boards that we have the key to, so we can go about town and put a poster up. And generally, they're always there in the same place, and they're kept up to date with the same sort of information that's in our newsletter. So people, again, the familiarity, people being able to see that about town and then come back and read the newsletter with the similar images or same events, is a really nice way to back it up. Also, obviously, the in-person events, we do ask people if they want to sign up, become members. It's very, very optional. We just sort of have a sheet that people can sign if they want to. No pressure as such. Our membership doesn't have any huge difference to just attending and being part of the newsletter. It mainly is getting people into the newsletter to be able to see what we're up to. But members, it means we can send more specific emails asking, oh, did you see the newsletter? Can you volunteer at this event? That kind of thing. Be more direct. Feedback is, like, I can't recommend feedback enough. If you can do a survey in your newsletter or otherwise, or ask what people want to hear on social media, talk to people in person. Oh, what do you think? What would you like to see more of in the newsletter? That kind of thing has always been a big part of the newsletter for Sustainable Didcot, and really, really helps. By knowing what people actually directly want from us, we can then tailor it better. So hopefully some of that's been helpful, and maybe a bit of a comparison to your own newsletters and how you run them. Yeah, does anyone have any questions? Okay, I'll pass back to Alice.
Oh, thank you so much, Max. That was brilliant. That was really helpful. And oh, Julia.
Thank you, and thank you very much. That was really great. I mean, in fact, both presentations really helpful. Just one question springs to mind. In terms of the audience, would you say for the newsletter, because obviously people have already taken the step to sign up to it, would you always have in mind that these are people who are already a little bit engaged, and kind of know who you are, or do you also think the newsletter serves as a sort of shop front and that you should have in mind that someone who doesn't really know much about you might see it? Do you see what I mean? So is it more like you're having that conversation with someone who you already know, or should you also always keep in mind that it shouldn't sound maybe too, I don't know, even cliquey or exclusive or something like that?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, actually. A lot of our sign-ups to the newsletter come from events where people haven't heard of us before. So recently, the Eco Fair, Didcot Eco Fair, big event, loads of people have it with activities, with little shops, or representing their organizations. And so many people who had never heard of Sustainable Didcot were there. So yeah, I think it's definitely important to keep that in mind, depending on how you take on subscribers. Yeah, I think the way we put our events first can really help with that, because this is what we're doing. This is exactly when and how and sort of where they are. And then from there, we always sort of try and include something like, oh, get in touch if needed. So with the allotment project, for example, that was a new thing, recently launched it. And along with social media, it's a lot of get in touch at our email address, like being direct about where to contact us to get more information if it's wanted. And by making that by email as opposed to other things, it means we can send out more text than we would in a direct message. It's a more appropriate format, and get people in, like try and get people engaged in specific events that way.
Thank you.
Yeah, I feel, what Max said. We sort of assume that most people read our newsletters because they know who we are, but we know that, because we get new subscribers all the time, I always try and sort of don't assume too much, and keep it sort of very light and user friendly. I think that's where doing a little sort of intro at the top can be really helpful, because you can sort of say, welcome to new if you've had a flurry of new subscribers, say, you can say, like, welcome to new subscribers. If you want to know more about Low Carbon Oxford North, like, here's a bit about us, and then you can put a link to your about us page or something like that. So, that's where keeping an eye on whether you've had a lot of new subscribers lately or something can really help to inform that kind of introduction piece as well. If you haven't had anyone new for ages, you could write something totally different. So that's a good way of sort of tailoring your content, so you can keep the rest of the email as you would have done before, and just sort of tweak your sort of introduction. Does anyone else have any other questions? Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
Well,
yeah.
it just might be of interest or worth noting. So on that point, actually, about a year ago, we made some changes to the newsletter, but the main changes being we tried to drastically shorten it, and we got rid of the introductory text, and we got rid of the content links at the top. And the reader figure roughly jumped by 10% from 50 to 60%. So who knows, what exactly the link was, but it's I'm not sure you can draw any general conclusions from that. It was quite an interesting experience, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you need to not waffle, I suppose. I mean, I do, like, actually, in the key and the network update, I don't do that. So I go straight into news. But I enjoy, like, the newsletters that I do really enjoy. I quite like that little sort of insight at the beginning.
Same. I mean, same. Yeah. I suppose.
I guess it's sort of horses for courses, isn't it? You just
Yeah. Yeah.
you can trial it and you can not trial it, and that's
Yeah.
where you can sort of play around with it a little bit and play around with the format a bit and see what you think. If there's been like a really big sort of world event, I sort of try and incorporate that somewhere, whether it's in our picture of the fortnight, or I sometimes think, God, I just don't feel like I can send this newsletter without addressing the fact that something huge has happened in the world. So I'll try and think of a way to kind of let readers know that we are sort of thinking about that bigger picture and stuff like that. That can be a way to kind of tailor your content a bit to make it relevant. I'm going to share my screen again. I'm conscious we've only got 15 minutes, and I really did want to show you some research I've done on different sort of platforms and stuff like that. So I'll do that, and then we might have a bit more time at the end for some more questions. It won't let me come out of the video. Let me just go into the Can everyone see that? I'll take that as a yes. So we've talked a lot about MailChimp. And I recently found something out about MailChimp when I was putting this research together, is that because it used to be 2,000 contacts you got for free, and then they dropped it down to 500 contacts, which obviously all companies are doing at the moment. They're making their free service a lot less appealing. But anyone that signed up to MailChimp before 2019, which I'm guessing Sustainable Didcot and Sustainable Wantage did, still get their free 2,000 contacts. So whatever you do, don't close your MailChimp account and start another one, because it's called a legacy account. So basically, if you opened a MailChimp account back then, chances are you might still get 2,000 free contacts, which is weird because we had our CAG MailChimp account for ages and they kicked us out at 500. So I really don't know what's going on there. But so now MailChimp, you get free 150, you get 500 contacts for free, which means, and I think you can send unlimited emails to those 500 contacts. So it's great if you're starting up, and I would say it is the best platform. It's like these, like Sustainable Didcot and Sustainable Wantage. It's really user friendly. It does everything for you. And if you don't think you're going to reach 500 contacts soon, I would definitely recommend it. But there are others. I don't work for MailChimp. Other platforms are available. So I did quite a lot of research into this, so you don't have to. MailerLite is again, it's an American company, and with them you get 1,000 contacts for free. So if you want to find something that you can stick with a bit longer than MailChimp, then I would go with that. It's exactly the same bit of kit. You can do sign up forms, you have the email templates, you basically import if you've got a list already, you can import it from a spreadsheet and then people can sign up as they go along. You can send the emails and you get the analytics. It's exactly the same, except you just get a bit more for free. But I wouldn't be surprised if they move the goalposts as well, as everyone seems to do. So keep an eye on it. If you go over 1,000 contacts, they also have quite a good deal where you can get 30% off if you're a not-for-profit. So I've seen a few of our members use MailerLite. So that's a really good option. Brevo, which used to be Sendinblue. Sendinblue used to be a really popular community one. They've obviously been taken over and got a bit more corporate. They've got an interesting offer where you can have 2,000 contacts before you have to pay, but you can only send 300 emails per day. So if you were hitting that point where you were getting above the 1,000 contacts and you still wanted a free service, you could use Brevo, but you would have to like stagger your sends. So send 300 a day over 3 days or something like that. And you can schedule your emails in, so you can do that. It would just take a little bit more admin to do it, but it's another way to kind of stretch that free limit a bit for groups. All of them jump quite a lot. There's none that are just like cheap as chips. The minute you have to start paying, it's between like 20 and 30 pounds a month, which I know for groups is a significant output. So I would try and keep it free for as long as possible with those three options. And if I ever come across a better one, I'll put it in one of our newsletters so you can find out. I put Wix on there. That's what we use because our website is a Wix website, which is a website builder. And we'd gone over on MailChimp and it was going to jump up to like £60 a month or something. And so we were looking at other options and we have more contacts than any of the free ones. So we were willing to pay. And Wix was the best deal, obviously, because we're already subscribers to their email. We got like a good introductory offer. And we pay about £35 a month, but we have 1 million contacts in that. So I don't think we're ever going to get anywhere near the top of that. So I feel quite confident. And again, it does all the same things. I'd say it's not as good as MailChimp. There's certain design things that MailChimp does that are better. But for our needs and for the price, that's what we've gone with. I've put Gmail on there because you can obviously just send emails through your email provider. Again, they still have a limit. You can only send 500 emails a day through your Gmail. And obviously you don't get the sign up forms and the tracking and everything like that. But if you just want to dip your toe in the water of sending out a monthly email or something, and you don't want to sign up to MailChimp or anything like that, then just just get a list and send some emails out and see how it goes. Oh, why is that not moving on?
Just one question, sorry, for the
Sure.
MailerLite.
Yeah.
Can you, yeah, it's 12,000 emails per day or
12,000 emails a month.
a month? Okay.
Yeah, so you can have 1,000 contacts in there and you could email them. You could email, say you had 1,000 in there, you could email them 12 times in a month.
Okay.
And if you've got less, so I do think it's the best free option out there at the moment.
Mhm.
Here's some other tools that I use to make my life easier when I'm writing newsletters. I go on about it all the time, but I use Canva. You can upgrade to the premium version. If you're a not-for-profit, you have to submit your constitution or or your articles or something to show that you're a not-for-profit organization. So it wouldn't work if you're unincorporated. But we get all the bonuses of having the premium service, which gives you like a whole library of free like stock images and graphics and loads of cool things that you can do to manipulate your photos. And it's just a really brilliant tool for creating like eye-catching graphics and posters. I probably go on Canva every day. I can't love it enough. And I'm actually going to do a Canva workshop next year, I think. So if anyone wants to find out how to get the best out of Canva, then look out for that. Trello, this is what I use to store all my newsletter content. As Max said, you come across things all the time. I'm doom scrolling on my phone in the evening and I'll see a good article or I'll see an event on Trello. It's a free bit of software. You can have it as an app, you can have it as open on your desktop. You have like boards that you can label. So I have a board for content, for jobs, for grant information, for events. And every time I see something, I just drop the link in there. Or I might, if there's not a link, I'll just write a note saying, like, remember Barracks Lane have an event on this date. And then when it comes to writing the newsletter, I can go to my Trello and nearly everything that I need is in there. You could just as easily do it on a Word document or a Google Doc, drop the links in, do titles. You don't have to use Trello, but because I use it for to-do lists and things like that, I just find it really user-friendly and really easy to have everything in one place. Google Alerts, same as signing up to other people's newsletters. I sign up to Google Alerts, just Google it. You get a thing where you can put in different topics that you want Google to alert you about. So I have climate action, I have community action, I have geographic places. So I have Didcot, Wantage, Wallingford, so any news from those areas gets sent to me. And I'd say like 50% of it, maybe more, is useless. But you do get some really, like, it does basically trawl the internet for any news articles in which those things are mentioned. And it's definitely worth doing, especially if you have really good specific things that you're searching for. So for your local area and things like that. It's more things that go into your email that you have to trawl through, but I find it really useful. And ChatGPT, oh, love it or hate it, I've started to get really slightly reliant on it. It writes a lot of content for me. If I've got a blank page and I just don't know where to start, you can go into ChatGPT and you can say, write me a paragraph to promote an email marketing workshop. And it does it for you, and then you can take the best of it. It just gives you a place to start. Obviously, like, you'll tweak it to make it your own. I use it for like as a thesaurus for finding better words for things. I use it to get ideas for dinner. Completely irrelevant to the newsletter, but I know Joe uses it to get ideas for recipes and stuff like that. So just have a go with it and play around with it. But it's there. I know it uses a lot of data, so I try to not be too on it too much.
Oui, vous êtes arrivé parce que j'ai pas entendu la sonnette. Vous êtes
Oh,
arrivé. Ah, je vais.
I'll mute Christine. And finally, this is just my little roundup. I've said most of these. Time-saving tips. Again, just rounding up. If you use an email client, like use it. Use all the things that it has to offer to make life easier for you. Welcome emails are great, so you can set up an automated email when people sign up that say, this is who we are. Again, Julia, that sort of answers your question a little bit. If someone signs up to the newsletter, you can make sure that they get a welcome to Low Carbon Oxford North. This is who we are. This is what we're about. We'll send our newsletter every month. It will include things like this, and this is how you contact us. So that welcome email sort of sets people up for then getting your emails going forward, and it's really useful because once you've done it once, you never have to look at it. You know, it does it automatically. You might just want to check in every year that it's up to date. Scheduling emails, I do that all the time. If I'm going on a holiday, I can write my newsletter the week before and schedule it so it comes out while I'm away. Signing up to partner newsletters and getting Google alerts. It can seem onerous, but I've got really good at just sort of filtering through things, speed reading things and pulling out the things that are useful. Again, with Facebook, having a little trawl to see what people are sharing and what you can nick. People put their newsletters and their content on Facebook because they want as many people to read them. So if you're resharing it, like, they're going to be glad of that. The only time I sort of ask people if I can share it, obviously, is if there's pictures with kids in, or if it's something quite sort of personal, and then I'll drop them a message and say, I'd love to share this in our newsletter. Is that okay? Just being a bit mindful of that kind of thing. But most of the stuff I share, I'm just assuming people are happy for me to share it because it's already in the public domain. Keeping track of things as you go along. Canva, stock images. Again, there's loads of free sites where you can get stock images if you haven't got a picture. I mean, pictures of real people and real life are always the best, but if you need to use a stock image of some delicious fruit and vegetables or a garden or something like that, then there's some brilliant ones out there. Use them to your advantage. 2 minutes left. Does anyone have any questions? Let me stop sharing. Oh, I'll just put my last slide on because there's our sign up to our newsletters.
It's more of an adding on to what you said about images, if that's all right. So when I started at Sustainable Didcot, there wasn't a bank of images anywhere. Once they'd been put onto Facebook and Instagram, they got deleted for GDPR. So they'd been used and that was that. So we had to go from pretty much nothing. What I did was trawl back through all the old images, save loads that would work for generic things. So from our allotment, from certain craft sessions, things like that. And I use them. And sometimes repeating it can be nice because it's members who've been there for years and they're seeing themselves come up again and that kind of thing. But then also to a lot of people, many of those images will be new. So just if you're short of images that are more personal, that's another way of doing it as well. Stock images are fantastic, but if you do have an old backlog of images hiding away, it's worth tapping into as well.
Yeah, we use the same ones over and over again. Some are from like 15 years ago. But yeah, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Brilliant. Kathy?
Yeah, I was just going to add to that, really. I mean, I'm a serial person for taking photographs at events. And even though sometimes, if you're also doing refreshments and slideshow and stuff like that, it can be quite hard to do. But just always try and fit in some time. And to do that. And I think you can't underestimate the power of a photograph that has people in it doing something together. And if at least one of them is smiling, then so much better. You know, just people engaged together is much more powerful than the back of heads or anything. You know, sometimes that's your only option, but and I mean, I put a photograph in of every section in my newsletter, and I think that sometimes means it goes into the spam folder though. So I have to try and be careful of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I try and strike the balance of enough of some images, but not too many. Also because I don't want to use them all in what I try and like. If I've got some good ones, I try and like eke them out over a few weeks as well. Christine?
Yes, I have two questions. The first one is, how do you engage people to agree to be on the photo? Because no, it's difficult for people to agree to be on the photo. So that's one question. Okay, it's to Kathy, and I have another.
Well, yeah. Well, at Low Carbon Hub, we have a consent form. So if you're using an image, first of all, I ask people anyway, but you can also have quite a big notice that says photographs are being taken at this event today, you know, so please let, and so I would have a badge on with my name and everything. And usually if there's anyone else with me, the same thing, please let one of the staff know that you definitely don't want your photo taken. But and then I now have to run around after people, getting them to fill in the consent, which we then file, and we now don't use any photos without the consent forms. But if it's a you know, a room full of people, then and they're not super clearly in view, then we would rely just on the notice that says photographs are being taken, you know.
Yeah, because if someone says, okay, I don't agree, so sometimes it's difficult because when you are clicking photo, you don't exactly know who was that, and so sometimes it makes the job a little challenging.
Yeah, it is now more onerous because there is, you know, you might just take a photo of 4 or 5 people talking together. I have to get a consent form from all of them. If I'm using where their faces are clearly visible, which are the ones that you want to use, you know, because so I do have to set time aside now to do that. And the form, you know, it just requires 2 signatures, but you know, the people involved got to read it as well and everything and make sure they understand it. So yeah.
Thank you very much. And I had another question for Alice. In the beginning of your presentation, you mentioned how to get more people on your mailing list. You mentioned to link in email signature. What do you mean, this link?
So if you look at so I think I sent an email to everyone yesterday with the Zoom link. If you just look at the bottom of the email that says, it's got like my email signature and it says Alice Williams, comms coordinator CAG, and then underneath it says like sign up to the Key, our newsletter. And so there's so every email that I send has that link in it. So if I'm emailing someone new, they might, I don't know how many people, I don't get the data on how many people click on my email signature, but it's just another way of basically getting your email sign up link out in the world to have it in your email signature. Anyway, bye Kathy. Yeah, we're over, so we'd better say goodbye. I've recorded this, so I'll share it. Thank you so much to everyone for coming in. If anyone has any more questions that they want to send to me afterwards, then feel free. And thank you so much, Max, for putting that together. It was really great. And enjoy the rest of your days, everyone. Oh, there's a feedback form that should pop up when you come out of the meeting. If you could fill that in, that would be great.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.